Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. Today we are going to take a look at another of these newer Safari LTD figures. And this one is a very obscure species, one I've never seen get a figure in my entire life, and it is called the Macrauchenia. I believe, anyway. I can't say for sure as I'm not too familiar with the species, but because it is very obscure and it is extremely cool looking, I was super excited to take a look at it with you guys right here. As always, Safari LTD looks to have done a beautiful job on the sculpt and detail overall. They never cease to amaze me with their presentation and just how beautiful of a figure they can produce. So, by now I'm sure you're excited to see a closer look at this, as I am as well. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt, you can see that it looks extremely well done. Along with the coloration that's added, looks very nice, very natural, and very realistic, something I could definitely see on an animal like this. You can see the inside of the mouth has painted teeth and individually sculpted teeth, which is extremely impressive considering the size. Even the lower jaw has painted teeth. That looks really cool. A beautiful touch, something that's very small, very subtle. You may not even take notice of. If we look at the paint on the eyes look to be painted perfectly, and they have a very nice gloss to help them shine really nicely. If you look at the overall sculpting of the head, I think that the head sculpt looks great. You can almost get a sense of the skull shape underneath the animal's skin and fur. You can also pick up on just how fine the fur is on the face. Looks really nice. You've also got the ears up there. Both look to be sculpted really beautifully, and they're painted on the inside of the ears with like a white and a bluish kind of a color, or like a gray. It might be like a light gray, it's a little hard to tell. Very nice color variation inside the ears as well. And if we look up here, you can see that this is sculpted really nicely. You can see the nostrils there. Very nice, very fine detailing within. Really beautiful looking head sculpt. The eye on this side is also painted perfectly, and again shines and glistens in the light as if this animal is 100% alive right here in my hands. As we start to run down the neck, you can see just how nicely of a job that they've done on the fur overall, and you can see that they've dry brushed like a light brown over top of an already light brown, or like a goldish brown that is currently the main coloration, but they've dry brushed like a light brown or like a khaki to really bring out the detail of the fur very beautifully, very realistically. As you get down here into the chest area, you can see the chest protruding a little bit there from the body. You can also make out the shoulder blade up there, along with some very nice musculature here in the front leg. It also kind of gets a design here with like a whitish coloration on the underside, which looks pretty cool. You can see as you move down the leg that the leg looks really nice, beautifully painted nails. The leg transitions from this brown to a very dark brown, or almost like a black for the lower part of the legs, and then has like a light gray or almost a white or an off-white there for the nails. As you move back up the body, you can see the stomach here is protruding a little bit out. Seems to be pretty well fed, which is a plus. It doesn't look sick or anything, which sometimes you do tend to get figures from companies that look sick, but you can really see right there that it is a beautifully fed animal, very healthy. Really nice fur texture again here on the side, and you can see this whitish coloration runs up here behind the thigh, or actually in front I should say. Runs up in front of the thigh and the hip area. You can see the skin stretching here a little bit as well, since this leg is pressing the skin and pulling the skin back. You can again see how nice this leg sculpt is, even on the lower part of the leg where it's dark. Might be a little hard to see, but the fur detail is really nice even on the feet, and you can also see kind of a mixture of browns within this very dark black as well. And then if you come up here, you can again see the hip bone there, and there's the tail, really nice looking. Gets to a nice dark coloration here at the end. If we look at the other side here, it looks primarily the same because there's not too much really going on as far as the sculpt goes and the position that it's in, but you can see that the fur detail of the neck is honestly beautiful, and I love that dry brushing. I think the dry brushing they've done was a perfect color that they chose, and you can see that it has that same similar coloration but in a stripe that runs down the neck till about the shoulder area, and then it stops dead and then we have just this very nice dry brushing that runs the entire rest of the length of the animal, and you can see just how great of a job it does when it comes to elaborating the sculpt of the fur. Once again, on this side you can see the musculature here of this front leg really nicely. You can also get an idea of the bone structure there as well. Really nicely painted nails on the front leg. And then if we look back here, you can see the hip bone again. Really nice fur texture all over the place. Oddly enough, there isn't really this white coloration that runs up into the side, kind of like you see over here. You can see it runs up here into the stomach. It doesn't really do that on this side, a little bit, but I guess that just kind of gives it some difference, some color difference, which is something that is potentially realistic that you would see on a real living, breathing animal. I've seen that numerous times on different animals where one side doesn't match up perfectly to the other when it comes to coloration. It can look quite different, so that is pretty cool actually. And you can see the rear leg also looks beautiful on this side, as does the tail from this side as well. The underneath also sports some really nice sculpt and detail, and the overall paint application is honestly fantastic everywhere that I seem to look at it. So really, really beautiful looking. One thing that is definitely really good about this figure is that even with these very thin, very scrawny looking legs, it balances really beautifully. One thing I never seem to have issues with when it comes to Safari LTD figures is them not balancing, so that is definitely a continuing trend, which I do love. For a length, you can see that for the length to the end of the tail, you're looking at about 4 3/4 inches, or about 12.5 centimeters. But if we go to the end of the leg, which is stretching out a little further, you're probably at about 5 inches, or about 13 centimeters, somewhere in that range. As far as a height goes, to the top of the ear, just a little over 3.5 inches, or about 9 centimeters. For a size comparison, here is the Safari LTD Psittacosaurus, which is definitely one of my favorite Safari LTD figures of all time. So if you happen to have this figure, you'll get a pretty good idea of the size of, and bring in the Safari LTD Sauropelta, which is one of the single best Safari LTD figures of all time. And again, you should be able to get a pretty good idea of the size of this figure next to it. It's not a very large figure. It's definitely a very good size, something that's nice and thin and sleek, and should have no problem fitting honestly into any collection, which is awesome because it's so super obscure of a species to have a figure of that. I think it honestly has a place in pretty much every prehistoric collection. So this Safari LTD Macrauchenia is really, really cool looking. I love this figure. I think it's in a very relaxed pose, or maybe almost to the point where it was kind of walking along and maybe sensed there might be a predator nearby and it's lifting its head up to take a look around. It almost has a slightly worried look on its face, which is maybe the idea or the inspiration behind this pose or this sculpt. That's definitely kind of the feeling that I'm getting. But I think honestly it looks beautiful. The paint application is fantastic on this. The transition between the browns to the very dark brown or blackish coloration in the legs is really nice, and I think those colors really play off of each other really well and definitely look very natural overall, along with the beautiful dry brushing that's been done really nicely, brings out all that very beautifully sculpted detail of the fur all throughout. I do like the white coloration around the eyes as well as that black stripe. It gives it a bit of a flashy look in an overall very realistic way. I think the sculpt in general is fantastic as well, as far as the very minute details and sculpt work goes. I don't think they've missed anything anywhere, honestly, as far as catching the movement of the animal or just in general the fine details. I think it really looks fantastic from every single angle that you see it, and it's a beautiful addition to the Safari LTD line, that's for sure. So if you do want to pick this up, I will include a link in the description where you can go ahead and do just that. I definitely recommend this figure, so check the description, head on over to the Safari LTD website where you can pick this up for yourself. But before you do that, don't forget to please like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell to be notified of any future videos, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.